Well, good morning and welcome to our webinar. Client experience is your competitive advantage. Our goal today is to arm our clients, partners, and their guests with some new tips and tricks to help fuel achievement of their goals and growth in 2022. My name is Leon Borner and I'm the Director of Sales here at itracks, and I'm pleased to host this webinar discussion today. Joining me in our panel are two industry leaders in online qualitative research. First on our virtual stage is Candice Northey. Candice joined itracks in 2003, and in her more than 17 years in market research, she has acquired tremendous experience that has allowed her to develop some of the industry's best practices when it comes to online qualitative research. Specifically, Candice leads a team that works with clients to help support their online and mobile research needs. Training and process development are a key aspect of her day-to-day as she leads a team focused on innovation and world-class client services. Good morning, Candice.
Morning.
Joining Candice and I is Kathy Fitzpatrick. Kathy is itracks VP of Business Development and joined itracks in 2014, bringing with her an impressive career in market research. Kathy has countless experiences ranging from research design, field operations, and client relationship management. In her impressive 35 years in marketing and the market research industry, she's been a leader in the areas of research methodology and design, consumer engagement, and sales process. She has built countless extraordinary relationships in her career and is seen as a pivotal piece of her clients' insights journey. Our colleague Juana Popescu is going to be monitoring the chat as well today, so please submit any questions you have along the way. If she can answer them within the chat quickly, she will. If there are questions that require a deeper discussion, we'll keep those in the parking lot until we find the open floor later today. Now, to start, the idea of this webinar was born out of a conversation Kathy, Candice, and I were having the other day. We were discussing annual client reviews, putting together a list of some of the best examples of execution we saw this year, and the topic of competitive advantage came up, both internal and external. After a few minutes, we'd built up quite a bit of excitement amongst the three of us, sharing stories about some of the unique designs and creative solutions and insights we've seen achieved this year. That led us to revisiting our own definition of client engagement and how it fuels our clients' competitive advantage. So first, before we speak specifically about client engagement, it's truly important we understand competitive advantage and why it is so valuable to our clients. Kathy, you've seen a number of really successful, unique differentiators and value propositions in your career. When I mention competitive advantage, what does that mean to you?
Well, welcome everybody, and thanks for the nice intro, Leon. And hi, Candice. The competitive advantage is something that all companies at some point take a step back and think about. Where do I fit in the marketplace? You know, what are my leading advantages in that competitive marketplace? So typically it's an attribute that enables you to outperform your competitors. So allowing a company not only to have something that nobody else has or few have, to achieve great margins compared to the competition, creates great value not only for your company and shareholders, but also for your external or even internal constituents and clients. When you're defining a competitive advantage, you have to make sure, if you're calling it a competitive advantage. I know a lot of the market research people in the audience have specific, maybe statistical models that they've built that are proprietary to them, that they may have a special way that they conduct qual or quant, either online or in person. You know, they've developed different methodologies, but to be considered a true competitive advantage, it really should be something that is difficult or perhaps even impossible to replicate or duplicate. So if it's easily copied or imitated, you'd have a tough time justifying that it would be considered a competitive or a competitive advantage. If you're really thinking about constructing a competitive advantage, you really need to look at three key pillars. The first thing that you want to think about in the discussions that we've had internally and even that I've had with my own clients is the first would be benefit. You really need to make sure and be clear about the benefits that the product or service provides. And it really has to offer true value and generate true interest with outside sources. The second would be your target market. You must establish who is purchasing, who are your clients, who are buying from you, and what does your competitive advantage contribute to that landscape and that target market. And then importantly, the third thing would be that your competition. It's important for you to understand what your competitors in the marketplace are doing and how you indeed might stand out from them. So lots of words that I've said here, but really and truly to construct a competitive advantage, you really need to be able to detail the benefit that you provide to your target market in ways that your competitors cannot. So today, we're going to be talking about client experience, which is our topic, and how that plays into your competitive advantage. And the key will be in overall, perhaps in technology, utilizing a back room, because we're excited about this.
Yeah. Thank you, Kathy. And, giving us those three pillars and, I'll call it that architecture of advantage from a competitive standpoint, really helpful. And I certainly appreciate that. What I would follow up though with is, really truly, like, what is the importance of competitive advantage, right? We hear it referenced all the time, but I'd love to, just hear your perspective based on your experiences, why it's so important.
Why it's so important to have a competitive advantage? Well, it's primarily business growth, but beyond business growth, you really have to understand that there's, a way to provide something of such unique value to your clients that they almost can't live without it. It becomes part of the construct and the fabric weave of design and what a company would do.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kathy. Now, Candice, I'd like to come over to you now. You've seen many different online research platform iterations in your career that have supported countless study methodologies. When we think about this competitive advantage landscape in the online qualitative research world today, can you share some of the experiences that you and your team have been exposed to that have really helped our clients change the game this year?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll back up a little bit and just talk about how when I first started at itracks, we found that there was a reluctance to even engage in online research. So that was something that we had to really help our clients get their clients to buy in. But once they did, there was just like these benefits that in itself became a competitive advantage. So if you were doing online research and were able to add the ability to have a geographical distribution, just like the diversity that it offered for your participants, and then also like really, and then cost savings on travel. And most important is that immediacy of the back room. So if you think about a traditional face-to-face facility, there is a little bit of a block between the observer back room and the main room, which some people really like, but it also stops the client from really kind of privately engaging in research with whoever's doing the moderation. So that in itself was like something that a lot of my clients were looking at, and they just right away took advantage of. It was really important to them. So just the fact that the researchers were able to suggest follow-up questions right away. If you listen to debriefs where clients have done it, for the first time, you were seeing things like the client being really excited about the research and actually just kind of getting involved a little bit more with, maybe we should ask this next time and maybe we should do this next time. It also helped with things like fact checking, right? You're a moderator, you might not know absolutely everything about the industry that you're doing the research on, and that lets you kind of check with that back room and say like, hey, is this involved in the offering? This participant's asking about this, and to really clarify and make sure you're asking the right things. And in recent years, we're also seeing some concurrent research going on. So research happening in the back room with the observation team and with your client team, as well as happening in the main room, and then using all those materials for your final report.
Yeah, that's really interesting, that principle of concurrent research, and we're going to come back to Kathy here shortly because I know she's got some great insight on that. But before we do that, this backroom engagement in the virtual environment, it evolved tremendously over the years, but particularly I would say the last 18 to 20 months, it's just continued to evolve month over month. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that evolution and maybe some of the trends that you and your team are seeing, and specifically how our clients are benefiting from it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So as we all know, the last couple of years has been very interesting. And the big part of it is the fact that video has become so ubiquitous in everyone's lives. Everybody has attended a video call. It's not a surprise to see things on the call that you like, people like kids and pets in the back room. And so the fear of doing video online it's not as high as it was in the past. And then there is a little bit more of a threshold for seeing those disruptions. And actually people are utilizing that to say like, okay, this really gives me some insight into who this person is. I'm not just seeing somebody in a very neutral environment. I'm seeing them in their own home. They're at their most relaxed and most candid. So that's really important. And from our clients' perspective, inviting their clients, they don't have to worry about that absolute video perfection in some ways. They know that their C-suite clients are going to be able to handle, a dog walking into the room or a cat walking across the keyboard, those types of things that I feel that they would be worried about previously. And then from a technological standpoint, more observers can join than ever before. So what that means is that you're not like, especially for video work, you're not segregated to just having like, your 8 observers that are handpicked in the back room. You can have as many observers as you want now in private mode, and then have quite a few in that video mode as well, which means that you can have a little bit more striation of who is joining. So you can have everyone from that C-suite user to like a help desk staff member, a customer support, or a sales team. And so really whoever your business leaders are, or even the people who are handling these things day to day, are able to watch and see like customer reactions in real time.
Yeah, that's really great insight. And as these tools and the services to support the tools in online research continue to evolve, it's important that we don't forget what an incredibly important piece of the design puzzle the backroom is. And that's where I'd love to come back to you, Kathy. So when we think about backroom design, what are the things that we need to consider when contemplating the structure of that? And really, how do we make that backroom experience part of the research?
And that almost took the words right out of my mouth. How indeed does one utilize the back room to become part of the research process? And it's all about designing the research, but then balancing that with who is important to this research? Who's going to make decisions? What are we going to do with the data? You know, what is the value that we can add to the specific research project or overall objective that can enable our clients or our internal constituents to make not only well-informed decisions, but also empathetic and insightful decisions. So let's look at this from a broad perspective first. There's always going to be those projects that are basic projects. You know, there's not a lot of back issues that you need to deal with. Your clients may or may not want to come. The research team on your side will be there, but you know that there is always going to be those kinds of projects. But I challenge us as a research community to say, how and when can we integrate the back room into the results and have a better deliverable at the end of the day? So having it built into your chosen platform is critically important because you want it to be secure. You don't want there to be any cross-contamination, but you also want to make sure that you can have a secondary moderator in the back room. How can you use the back room to fuel the competitive advantage and add value to the research engagement? At first blush, often a functioning back room might be all you need. But I challenge again all of us to take a step back and think deeper. And some of the things we might want to think about before you integrate a back room as part of this research and the reporting is what decisions are going to be made as a result of the research. You know, who's going to be involved in the decision making? What's the impact to the client or your internal constituents? What are you exploring and how? Is this going to be a very straightforward, very constructed, back and forth concept polls, prescriptive questions, or is it going to be more about thoughts, opinions, attitudes, a new product, a new service that your team is going to be sharing and understanding? Your client discussions can then
Oh, I think Kathy's frozen up here a little bit for us. Is she frozen for you, Candace?
She is, yeah. Let me. I'm unsure she can hear us.
So that's okay. You know what?
Yeah.
We'll give Kathy. Oh, there she's back.
Oh,
now.
there she's
Kathy.
back. Perfect.
Sorry, Kathy, we lost you there for a moment just when you were talking about cross-functional teams.
Pardon?
We just lost you there when you were talking about the cross-functional teams.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
So mirroring and blending data and thoughts that you collect in the back room can then add to that report because you've got a pyramid of people in that back room that can contribute utilizing like a secondary moderator. And that being the case, you would assign a secondary moderator to the back room whose only job it is to focus on those people who are observing. So digging with those people as well as the main moderator digging in the main room. How do you get people in when you're designing a back room? If it's something that you feel the client is going to have significant contributions to, make it an event. Send out special invites. Some of our clients send out snack packs, you know, so that they get that feeling that it is a special place to be and that there is value to participating. Remembering as you're doing the backroom design that you don't have any geographic restrictions. People in the organizations who have never been able to attend research in the past, we're moving it away from the nucleus of a research team and expanding it to all of the people that may have some impact from the research and the decisions that are going to be made. And then, of course, attendees who are some observers you might have invited that have helped drive the research to the next level. You know, we're more than happy to take your comments in chat. If they're, who have you invited to the back room that you have felt really made a difference, and it would have been a different project if they had not been in there? So
Yeah,
that's
that's
kind
great.
of a summary.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy. And I love what you say about making it a special event, right? So, sort of, breaking down those barriers, if you will, and making sure that they feel like it's a collaborative process. So now that we understand a little bit more about that design and how you can dream big and get your clients and your shareholders or stakeholders really involved and really make their involvement a vibrant part of the research, you'd referenced or touched on just, who we might want to think about inviting. But can you maybe get more specific into maybe some of the different role types or job titles or designations that we can leverage and seek out to make them part of this engaged research process?
Sure. And I think it's important, in the beginning of a project, as you're designing the research and you're thinking about what's going to be happening in the main room, allow yourself the freedom to be creative with, geez, if I only had the product manager in the back room, if I only had the ad agency, if you're going through some creatives, think about that. Think about what your deliverable is going to be, and think about what decisions are going to be made. And then take it to the client and say, let's talk about who needs to be in the back room. Make it part of the design, make it part of the mandatory process that their team needs to get involved. So obviously the client research team would be one of them. The product developers, the product designers, people who are in the manufacturing side of things, or if it's some kind of a service, somebody who is the developer of this service. I mentioned the ad agencies. Figure out who the decision maker is going to be. Who's going to make a decision with the results of this project initiative. Invite those people. I like to always say, and I'm going to mess this word up again because I have every single time, over the course of my career, I've heard multiple times where people get frustrated because senior management leads by storying around. And what that means is they've heard something from somebody in their organization that was at a focus group or was sitting on a phone with somebody, and they heard some little nugget that they thought was really cool. So somehow the CEO or the main decision maker heard that, and that becomes the focus of what the decisions are going to be made about, because it was something that, it was a story that made sense to the end user, to the decision maker. Getting those decision makers into the back room and enabling them to create their own story based to the main room chat, based to their constituents, based to the other stakeholders who are in the back room. All of a sudden, the whole adage, seeing is believing, hearing is believing. They're not just looking at some paper report that, a bunch of graphics are online. They're looking, clicking through the PowerPoint. That looks good, let's go. Get them involved. And I know I'm being very passionate about this, but I really truly believe that as researchers, we need to be creative, and we need to get those people in, because at the end of the day, we help our clients make much better decisions. Involve sales, involve marketing. Secondary considerations might be, do you need somebody from HR there? Is it something that's going to touch your internal employees? Do you need mid-level people from your company who will be executing once a decision is made? Customer service people, Candace referenced that just a bit ago, getting them involved in research is pretty fun for them and eye-opening. And then finally, financial and billing. If it's something that is, we had one client who had a tremendously huge back room, but they were discussing billing and how certain packages were pulled together. And the main room had no clue what they were talking about. And in the back room, the financial and the billing and the salespeople are like, what do you mean they don't know? We've sent all this information. And the bottom line is that what the message was is what we were doing was not connecting. People weren't understanding what it was we thought we were communicating. By having them in the back room, they clearly understood that and they were up in arms. And then all of a sudden, the whole chat in the back room went wild. I know I'm kind of yakking here, but it's interesting what you can gain and learn in a back room if you have the right people there. So clearly, your research will dictate who to invite. Be creative, think deep, get with the client. But again, I'm going to go back to the adage of seeing or hearing is believing. Nuggets are uncovered, those aha moments, depending upon who's hearing it. You know, a product developer might hear something and go, oh, that's a brilliant idea. Whereas the researcher might just blah, 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 blah. You know, not that we're diminishing our role, but we don't know product. We don't know development as well as the client does. So it truly does take a cross-functional team in that back room to really generate tremendously value-added recommendations in your final report.
Yeah, that's great, Kathy, and I can speak. I can safely speak on behalf of both Candace and I and say we adore your passion for this, and you know, this is the birthplace of where this webinar came today. So thank you very much for sharing. And you know, I love to sit under the learning tree and learn about you know, what's really possible and how big we can dream within this environment. You know, earlier we had referenced value propositions, and I think back to a time in my career when I got one of the best definitions of a value proposition, and you know, and that really ties into what we're talking about today when it comes to client engagement and experience, right? And so we're talking about, you know, relevant connection, and so there's no better relevant connection than getting into that back room. And you know, the way that our software team has designed our back room, it really offers for that unique, differentiated experience. So and that's where I'd like to come back to you, Candace, excuse me. Sorry, now I'm getting passionate, right? So Candace, you know, we've seen the itracks real-time platform allow our clients to engage in the online experience like never before. You know, what are some of the things that, you know, you and the team have seen this year as far as execution goes in that back room that we can share today?
Yeah, I have a couple examples that came to mind as Kathy was talking. The first of which is we were working with a large electronics company. They had developed a prototype for new Bluetooth headsets, which they had sent to some consumers. And the main developers of the product were in Asia, and they were doing the research in North America. And they were able to come into the back room and watch people use this prototype. That in itself, having like the actual product developers watching the use was, of course, really important. But it also really helped the research team because there was a lot of technological conversations at like an engineering level that, as a moderator, you might not know. Like I'll hand it to the moderator. They really had done a lot of research ahead of time, but there were still times that they had to just go to the back room and just say, hey, is this right? Like, how do I explain this? Like, you know, somebody would bring something up, or even just like, what is the button they're talking about on this prototype? Like, I'm not quite sure. And it really helped in two ways, right? Like, it helped the research team, you know, collaborate with the product developers, but also, you know, obviously help the back room and the product developers see their prototype in use. The other example I like to bring up, which I think is a really good example of using the back room as like an event, right? We worked with a large energy company out of Europe, and they actually had worked with their research team, or their qualitative research team would actually do I think it was a quarterly event where they would do a focus group with consumers, but then invite all of their sales force. And that really helped them kind of kill two birds with one stone. They were able to do consumer research in the main room, but then they had somebody in the back room that would actually talk to the sales team and make sure that people were kind of on board with processes and understanding why, why they were implementing certain processes. So it helped from like a management HR standpoint to get everyone on board to understand why these processes were putting in place, but they also got to like prove it with the consumer research and get some really good consumer satisfaction. I can say that with that, as I mentioned, it was an event. There was hundreds of observers watching. They weren't doing the focus group with everybody. It was like a select group from certain departments. But it was, the clients for that felt it was extremely valuable from that sales standpoint, mostly because they were able to get their salespeople in front of to see things firsthand that really increased their empathy and really made them better at their job.
Yeah, those are great examples. And we've worked alongside a product manager who is famous for saying bend it, twist it, try to break it. And so when you think about literally dozens or hundreds of people in a back room in this latter example, or in the first example, really representation from around the globe. I mean, I can't recall, but there were many countries and corners of the world that were represented in that back room. So, the capacity to be able to facilitate discussion like that is incredibly powerful. And, Kathy, you and I have both spent many years in sales leadership, and just imagine what kind of training environment that could be for a business development team to actually be able to observe live, or not necessarily just a training video or sort of canned training environment, because as we know, right, that being live and in that moment is incredibly powerful, and to be able to expose to those learning and development opportunities is tremendously powerful as part of a team's development. So, this has been fantastic, and I love that you've both been able to share some of these experiences and insight today. We've had the chat going, and as well, we've had some questions posted to us, and I'd love to get the voice of our audience represented a little bit today. So Candace, I'm going to come to you first. This is a bit more of a technical question when it comes to our software platform. The question is our backroom secure?
Yeah, it is. We follow very high security standards for protecting personal data. The backroom is, and that's across all of the users that access our software. The other thing is that with that backroom, there's just, the participants never know that somebody is there, so that's really handy. And then also the observers don't see any of the personal data of participants, which is absolutely important. All those things, as well as our encryption and the fact that you can save within your own geographical location for things around GDPR and so on, are all really important and lends itself to that discussion on security for sure.
Fabulous. I will take a stab at touching on a response to this next question first, Kathy, but if there's anything that you wanted to add in to piggyback on my response, please do. But the next question is, what is the difference between your back room and say a breakout room in a product like Zoom or Adobe? And this is a great question. It's one that we often hear. Adoption of a product like Zoom is rather prevalent since COVID landed, and we love to talk about this because what our software team has developed is what we call frame-in-frame technology, and has really allowed the moderator to seamlessly experience and transition between the two rooms without having to have multiple windows open. And this is something that we would love to show people, but what our product allows for is some really unique messaging functionality, whether that's direct one-to-one between observer or stakeholder in the back room and the moderator, as well as a consolidated group chat. We have the ability to mute and have audio and visual controls, so that if the moderator is very engaged and they don't want that distraction of the back room, with a click of a button, they can turn off that observer mosaic, those webcam feeds, but the back room still has the ability to have that really thriving, robust conversation amongst themselves with both audio and video enabled. So you can start to see expression. You know, you see me smiling, leaning forward. You know, these are all positive things that we want to make note of. So Kathy, is there anything that you wanted to add? If not, no problem. But I mean, certainly those are the things that come to mind when people ask me about some of the key differences.
I think one of the other things, and Candace can probably speak to this better than I can, but one of the things is that it's a seamless experience. Everyone's in the same platform. You don't have people circling around outside. I have some clients who, before using our back room, was like, okay, well, I have all my observers here, and you know, I'm screen sharing with them, but they're somewhere else. So in the back room that we've created, there's direct messaging between moderators and participants, between moderators and secondary moderators, but you know, and it's a clear cut break, or the wall is impenetrable. So if you're in the back room, there's no way you can get to a participant. You don't have to warn your client in advance, oh, don't talk, oh, don't do this, go on mute, don't type, you know, and then invariably they forget and they type away or something. So you don't have to worry about those kinds of things.
Yeah, and if someone's in, oh, I was going to say, if someone's in as an observer, they're an observer. They're not,
Yep.
You don't have to like bring them in as one user type and change them to another user type. It's set up ahead of time, and that functionality is just
Right.
there. And I've used other applications that, you know, you have to be like you said, warn the client not to press this and not to press that and not to press this. This one, it doesn't matter what they do, they're not going to be seen. And that's
Right.
I feel so important.
Yeah,
and it also, you know,
pertinent
to our conversation here, it also enables the client to speak freely, you know, to share their thoughts, share their opinions, because it's just them and their colleagues in that back room. There's no possibility that anybody else will be privy to what's being said.
Yeah, well said, both of you. I remember the first time I had introduced this backroom technology to a brand new client, to itracks, and you know, we were starting to have a discussion, and they said, "No way, it can't be that way." So seeing is believing. You know, let me show you.
Yeah.
Let me get you live into a demo of the product. And after a few minutes, they said, "Well, would you look at that? It really does work like that, huh?" And I said, "Absolutely, you bet." And so actually this is maybe a good transition into the last question that I see currently in the discussion, and Candace, maybe I'll come back to you, is, you know, you guys are doing tremendous numbers of groups, you know, at all hours of the day, and this question comes from a client in the US, and they say, I have a number of really sensitive client relationships, and managing that relationship is important to me. Will my clients know what to do when they join the backroom? Is it hard?
No, and I think this lends itself to what I was talking about before. If they're set up as an observer, they're set up as an observer. It is a little bit different than other conferencing software. Like, people do have to be set as a certain role type ahead of time, and everyone gets their own unique login link. That's part of our security. It's just the way that we have it set up. Yeah, once they're in, they can't break anything, and it's pretty straightforward. The messaging is like, once they create their password, then they get to a landing page that says, okay, which activity you're going to join. If it's active, there's a big join button. They join it, and then it asks them how they want to join the session, and they have the option to join the session with audio or video, or just in a private mode where they're just watching. In either case, they have access to a backroom chat.
Yeah, fantastic. So I don't see any more questions posted to us right now. So at this time, I'd like to maybe give our audience a bit of a sneak peek as it relates to part 2 of our series. So part 2, we've titled Competing in a Changing Environment, Doing More with Less. And you know, one of our challenges that we see right now is, and that we're going to see into the new year, is many teams are faced with budget adjustments, fewer internal resources, or pressure to bring more tasks in-house. And Navigating those complexities of team members working from various locations, privacy regulations with geographic restrictions, and outsourced team members really increased the need for secure and easily accessible management of projects and assets. And deliverables, excuse me. So finding the right technology platform and support system for your qualitative research can save precious resource time, allow you to execute flawlessly, and deliver more value to your clients. And that's really what we're all about. So we're going to show some case study examples that will certainly provide relevance to your organization, and we'll share some strategies to leverage different technologies, efficient process recommendations, and show you how we can do more with less time and budget investments in 2022. The registration link is easily found on our website. We'll post it in the chat as well, and make sure that we make that event available to everybody here today. I would also like to just share our contact information just very quickly to make sure that in case anybody does want to reach out to see our back room, any of us are happy to show and take you through a demo. We do offer a 2-week free trial to new users of the software, and so please, take this down. We'll make sure this is distributed to all the attendees after. But I know I speak on Kathy, Candace, and my behalf when I say, we welcome conversations and are always excited to show how our software and our client services team can help you reach your goals. With that, lastly, I just want to mention that we could not have done what we've been able to do this year without the support of our clients. We are immensely grateful for their support, their trust in us, and we want to take this time to wish everybody a safe and happy holiday season and wish everybody nothing but the best in 2022. Candace, Kathy, thank you again for today. I know I speak on behalf of our audience when we say we really appreciate you sharing your experiences. And we look forward to seeing you all again in early January. Thank you and have a great day.
Thanks, everybody. Have happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Bye.
Bye.